Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another installment of the Prosperity Through Multifamily Real Estate Investing Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Real Estate Cody, and with me in the hot seat, the coffee connoisseur himself, Mr. Brian Alfaro. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Cody. Nice to see you. Excited about our podcast guest today. It's the holiday time, so it's wrapping up another year of podcast recording. So we're excited about next year. Looking forward to some big things.
I know, man, and this year's just absolutely flown by, right? I can't believe. I mean, it don't even feel like the Thanksgiving holiday, but it's just been just cruising by.
But time flies.
A lot of good time flies, especially when you're having fun, right? It's been a fun year for us. So,
That's right.
Well, cool, man. Well, tell us who we're talking to today.
All right. Today we have Divine Bunch, and Divine is a website copywriter. So I'm looking forward to talking about real estate writing and marketing. Divine is a New Jersey native who relocated and fell in love with Elizabethtown, Kentucky. You don't hear that too often. She has loved writing since she could hold a pen. She's a real estate website copywriter, primarily working with service-based businesses. She writes for groundbreaking entrepreneurs, including Miriam McKissick, a real estate investor and American Ninja Warrior, Sakina Bunch, a #1 best-selling author and industry leader in the holistic health space, and Aisha Hayes Taylor, a renowned celebrity ghostwriter. She is trained in buyer psychology, ethical sales copy, and SEO, search engine optimization. She also proudly serves as the president of Explore Hardin County, a nonprofit organization dedicated to marketing and educating small businesses based in Hardin County, Kentucky. Divine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you here and looking forward to diving into this conversation. And, for us, for anybody that's tuning in, you're wondering, a website copywriter, what does that have to do with real estate, right? What does that have to do with us as apartment syndicators? And I mean, Brian, you know this all too well. I mean, you're operating a small business in this space, right? And so, and one of the multiple hats that we wear is marketing and branding and whatnot. And so I think this is such a relevant topic for anybody that's looking to build their brand and build their business. And so really excited, Divine, to have you here and kind of dive into that. So first off, I guess tell us a little bit more about, your background. How did you become a website copywriter and what goes into that?
Yeah, so it's a wild story. So for as long as I can remember, I've run my own businesses. I did banana pudding when I was like 7. And then in high school, I ran my own little nannying company where I'd hire on other people to help me babysit and stuff. So I really loved the idea of being my own boss. And it was actually when I was nannying that I met my mentor, Victoria Griggs. And she helped me figure out like what house hacking was and different types of real estate investing. So from there, I just like fell in love with the real estate world itself. Fast forward a couple of years, I really got into marketing and writing. And like I've always known that I love to write, but I didn't really know how to make that like a career outside of writing books, which I didn't really want to do. So eventually I got into this mentorship where she taught us all about like buyer psychology, and just how to be a copywriter, how to be a sales writer and be profitable in that and make your clients money. So from there, I decided to mix real estate investing since that's already something that I research religiously. I love everything about it. And I already had a little bit of experience in it with copywriting, because what I discovered was there are so many copywriters that really niche down and they only write on one specific thing. But there are so few in the real estate investing space. So there are very few in real estate, period. But the ones that are in real estate, they like to cater to real estate agents. And investing and agents can be a little different. They can be very different. You can be both, but it's still, worlds apart. So I really wanted to help real estate investors figure out how to market themselves as a brand, how to market their properties with or without Airbnb, like all these different things that that investors aren't necessarily gifted right out the bag.
I would agree with that, Cody. We're good at buying buildings, but writing is not one of our strong suits.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, Divine, it's so good refreshing to have, people much like yourself, because and I feel like you're a very niche subset of people. Like you said, you don't come across, people like yourself that have both the dual background of being a writer, copywriter, whatnot, but also being a experienced real estate, investor or, knowledge, I guess having the knowledge in general. So, but tell me a little bit more about what a copywriter does. Like, what is your primary responsibility in servicing your clients?
Yeah, so a copywriter's sole purpose is to help drive a sale. So I started out writing like social media posts, and I wasn't necessarily doing campaigns and things like that, but I was helping them figure out like how to optimize their posts so that they'd pop up in searches for like whatever they were selling. People were already searching for it. And then I also work on search engine optimization. So I don't do like the in-depth, like, oh, we're going to get you this press release, we're going to do that. But I do have a team for that. What I do is I set up your website or whatever we're writing so that it is easily Googleable, so that Google knows what it is, so that it sees your authority and that it's, easily searchable. So that's the sole purpose of a copywriter, is to provide the wording that will entice the sale.
So Brian, this is so important, right? Because when we talk about, your branding and your visibility out into the general public, whether that be through, digital marketing, social media, whatever the case may be, it's not just enough to be visible. Like, you have to be able to provide something that draws people to you, right? I mean, like Divine, you said it right, where you're trying to optimize your content to where you're driving that sale. You want to create those leads coming to you. And I know, Brian, we've built our entire infrastructure around our branding around that same principle, right? You want to attract leads to you, right?
Yeah, it's all about your wording. I'm sure Divine can speak to that, but you can be as front facing as you want, but if your copy isn't good, your rates of of sale, your sort of lead costs or whatever is going to be much higher because you just don't have the right wording. And we hear this all the time, Cody. And this is something we're constantly working on, right? Looking at what our messaging is, but it's really important that the words are just right. And we're not experts on that. So I think bringing people like Divine in who understand buyer psychology, so to speak, or investor psychology, what's going to get them to want to buy a property, what's going to get them to invest passively in a deal, whatever the situation may be. I expect Divine to be getting a lot of phone calls after this podcast gets released.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal for sure. And I mean, listen, I would argue, going back to our point a minute ago, that every entrepreneur in our seat is probably having the same type of challenges in this space. It's definitely a skill set that you have to develop in knowing how to target specific avatars, whether that be through investors, partnerships, whatever. How do you engage people? How do you attract them? And it is a science for sure. So again, Divine, luckily to have people like you in our corners to help us with that. So, but Brian, you brought up the point, and I think Divine, you referenced in your background as well about the buyer psychology. And I really want to dive into that because I think this marketing aspect is you're appealing to a certain part of the brain, right? You have your logical brain that kind of looks at facts and gives you an objective decision. And then you have the emotional brain, which is really honestly what drives probably all of us, right, to eventually make a decision. So talk to us a little bit more about the buyer psychology.
Yeah, so I am a nerd for science, which is weird because I hated it in school. I never knew what was going on. I don't know how I passed. But when I got to be older, I really started getting into people like Simon Sinek and Tim Ferriss. And, they talk a lot about like, your primal needs, your secondary needs, your tertiary needs. So when you're writing copy, you are not going to want to, the mistake that I see all the time is that people constantly talk about what they have and what they offer, which is great. And it brings awareness to what you're selling or your objective of your website. But it's not, by constantly talking about what you have, it's not connecting your reader to what's in it for them. So a huge piece of this, without getting too technical, is really understanding who you're writing to and what they care about. So a large part of what I do before I even start on websites or anything is getting to understand exactly who I'm talking to. And then I do research to figure out what types of stories are they telling, what types of language are they using, what does their pain look like in relation to what you're offering. And then what would it look like for them to find the solution, and what's their life going to be like afterwards? What benefits are they going to care about afterwards that we can highlight in their website, in your website? So it's really just about being buyer centric instead of, bringing awareness to what you're doing.
Brian, I think we see this often, right? If you go to any Facebook feed in our communities or any social media feeds, like you see all the deals closing, deals posted, or whatever. And look, we've followed that trap too, right? I mean, we're proud of what we're doing and achieving. But Divine, you bring up such a great point about what problem is that solving for those who are reading that and engaging with that, right? And I think this is again a great introduction into understanding how to figure that out. And we've talked about that before in the past, Brian, you recall?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to understand who, like you said, who your avatar is, right? Some people are looking for certain things. And if your copy, your material isn't telling them that you're going to give them what they're looking for, at the end of the day, somebody else will, and they're going to go and invest with somebody else, or, buy another property with somebody else, or whatever the situation may be. So you definitely have to show the world like what your, so to speak, what your resolution is. They have a problem and you're the resolution. How are you engaging them? How are you going to solve their problem? How are you going to make their life easier? And in our case, with multifamily in particular, especially if we're looking for other active partners or we're looking for other passive partners, what are they looking for, right? Are they looking for equity? Are they looking for deals? Are they looking for cash flow? Are they looking for long-term appreciation? Are they looking for tax benefits? Everybody's looking for something a little bit different, sometimes a blend. So you have to make sure you're tweaking your messaging, your copy, your website, all the things Divine's talking about to appeal to either that very specific niche audience or to maybe be a little bit broader and kind of appeal to one or two. But I think Divine, I think you would probably agree. You don't want to appeal to too many people either, right? Because then at that point, you're just not really focused on, who your avatar is, who you're targeting.
I totally agree. And when I first got started with copywriting, my coach told me, like, you want to pick a niche. And initially I didn't listen because I was like, well, no, I just want to work with everybody. I want to help everybody. But it was so hard. First, it was hard when I got to my website because that was where I found myself just talking about what I do because I didn't know how to relate to the other end of the website, the person looking at it. And then when it came down to my marketing materials, like my social media, if I wanted to run ads, I didn't know what stories to bring up. I didn't know what pain points to tackle outside of just really general ones. And because of that, like, I got decent business because what I do is very needed. But I didn't feel very fulfilled in what I was doing. I wasn't attracting the right type of work. And it wasn't as amazing as it was once I finally niched down and figured out, like, okay, this is what they care about. This is what they're dealing with. This is what they need help with.
Yeah, no, it's important to have that clarity and that focus for sure on who you want to work with. And Divine, I think when you talk about who you're trying to appeal to and what do they need, what problems are they trying to have solved, again, it seems like the biggest hurdle to overcome to me in that regard is how do you identify what that potential problem is? Because a lot of people don't know they have a problem, right? Or they don't know that they're looking for a solution to something. I think a lot of people are out there just, hey, I want to be a real estate investor, but have no idea where to even start. So how do you go about really diving into identifying that problem and building out your content, your copywriting to establish that for a particular client?
Yeah, so that's my favorite part of writing, which would be the market research piece. So copywriters kind of get a rep as being stalkerish because we will definitely, like, if we're writing emails for a client, we will go into their email list and see like who's there, and we'll go in and we'll like look these people up online and figure out what they're talking about, what they what they resonate with. Another thing that we will do is come right here. We will go to different podcasts within our niche, within like the circle of people that we're talking to, and we'll figure out what are they talking about, what do they hate, what do they love, like what are they what are some problems that they're highlighting without even realizing that they're highlighting them, you know? It's a lot of fun. And there are so many different things that you can do just using like a basic Google search or listening to podcasts, going on YouTube. Um, and that's really like the bulk of what I do. And the way that I set that up is I ask 4 basic questions, which I've already stated before, which is what pains are they dealing with right now? What does that look like? And then what solution do they need? And then what does it look like once they found the solution and they're living without that pain? And really all of my research comes down to that. And I just kind of organize things that way. Another thing that we can do is straight up ask the clients, ask the people that we're targeting. If you already have existing clients, go in, ask them like, hey, when you were working with me, like, why did you work with me? What were you struggling with? What did it look like once we started working together? What kind of like light bulb moments did you have? And where did you kind of start to see patterns of you getting what you wanted? And then what did that look like afterwards? So really awesome stuff.
Devon, I gotta joke a little bit here because you got lit up when you talked about market research, and God bless you, because I know Brian and I are probably not going to spend the time doing any of that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's a big problem. It's very tedious and time consuming. So that's why I was like, y'all, if you just want me to start doing this, I totally will. Like, I will just do it all for you.
Cody, one of the things we always harp on is, hire professionals to do the things that they're good at. Don't try to be a jack of all trades, so to speak. We don't have enough time in the day to be experts at market research. And we're also honestly not passionate about that type of stuff from a marketing standpoint. Now we're doing deep market research on the properties we're looking at, the markets we're targeting to buy deals. But on some of this other stuff, you can only spread yourself so thin. So I think bringing your professionals in-house, your copywriters, your market research, that's really, really important as business owners, as entrepreneurs looking to grow your business. You have to have professionals on your team that are really good at something and then that actually enjoy it. And Divine sounds like she really enjoys market research.
Yeah, you're right, Brian. I mean, look, no disrespect, Divine, but who wants to spend all the time doing that? But I think it goes back to the point we were making earlier, where you don't understand the complexity on really how to effectively market to a particular audience. And these are the multiple layers that go on behind a post or a blog or whatever piece of content you're putting out. Like, it can't just be, oh, I wrote this great article and you put it on your website. There really has to be a lot of intentful purposing in putting that content out there to appeal to the right people. And that's where, again, most of us have, look, I'll be honest, I have no idea that y'all are stalkers and y'all are going and doing some of the things you're doing. But I can see why you have to do that, right? I mean, and why that's so important for us, because again, ultimately, we want to be generating enough leads coming into our funnel to where we're continually growing our database. And so that's important. Now, the real estate world itself, I mean, as investors in general are emotional beings, right? I mean, you make your investments ultimately at the end of the day driven by some type of emotion, and real estate investors are, I would argue, are no different, right? And I would have to imagine, as a copywriter, tapping into that emotional framework. I don't know if is it easier than, like, if you're like maybe putting out content that's to let's say a consumer base where they're buying a product or something like that. Do you see a difference in interacting in the real estate world versus just the general consumer world?
Yes. So another reason that I really wanted to get into real estate was because I see so many websites where it is very factual and very technical, and there's really no personality or emotion in it whatsoever. And I'm full of personality. So I love being able to connect with people and portray theirs, because that's honestly how I make a lot of my decisions, for better or worse. Like, I love being able to connect with the personality that I resonate with. So when it comes to real estate, I would definitely say that it's super important to infuse who you are in there. and not just, make it super like product aware or offer aware. Um,
Don't be
and
dry, is what you're saying.
yeah, respectfully, please don't, because that's really how people make that emotional connection.
Well, we've seen that, right, Brian? I mean, in our own content, like if you think about like the posts that we've put out, or maybe let's say like our newsletter that we would put out, like the ones that are very much data driven, they get great engagement, but it may not get people quite as excited. But think about the post that you put out showing a picture of your family, or, maybe you're out doing something for your community or something like that. Like that sparks a lot more interest and engagement because it taps into the emotional side, the personal side of people. And I think you said it so eloquently, is like infuse who you are into your brand and whatnot. And I think that's important because we do. And Brian, we fall into this easy, right? Where you're so data driven and you're so much into the numbers and the, I don't know, just the nuts and bolts of the business that you forget about to be a person,
Yeah,
to be relatable as people.
I think sort of the way I'm understanding this or looking at this is your personality is sort of the magnet, and then the details and the numbers can kind of come after the fact, right? Now, some people are, strictly attracted to numbers, and that's okay too, right? There's a certain niche of audience for that. But as we've been talking about this whole time, a lot of people make decisions based on first emotion. Do they like the person? Do they like, the company? Do they like the brand? Do they like what they're doing? Do they like the personality and the vibes they're sort of giving off? And then if the answer is yes, yes on most of those items, then it's like, okay, let's talk about the numbers a little bit because I like you. But if you start on the other way around and you start talking about the numbers first and you show that you don't have any personality, you don't talk about your family, you don't talk about your kids, you don't talk about your why are you even doing this? Why are you in real estate? What are you trying to accomplish? Your personality, right? Then it can be much harder to attract people, because at the end of the day, why are we doing real estate? It's because we want to change the trajectory of our family, right? We want to build wealth. We want to build generational wealth. We want our time freedom. So if we're not leading with some of those things on the front end, you're just very dry is kind of the way to describe it. And I know you're right, Cody. We've fallen into that trap, and we've been trying to sort of change our messaging and our content, so to speak, within reason. You don't want to be completely emotional and do bad deals, but at the same time, you want to find that sweet spot, that line in the sand, and kind of balance everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, look, the reality is in this world, I mean, we're one of 1,000, 10,000 syndicators, whatever, right? You're one of those people, but so everybody's putting out their business, everybody's putting out their data, everybody's showing off their every deal that they've closed, and it's like, so how do you set yourself apart and make yourself stand out? And Devon, are you familiar with? I'd imagine you have to be, as a real estate in the real estate world, Grant Cardone, right? And we reference him often. And look, hate him, doesn't matter. The guy is a marketing genius because he taps into your emotional psyche, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's the model that really gets people drawn in, and that's how he gets such a big following. And so, not to say we should go out there, be Grant Cardone and flash around, whatever, but the point of being is, I think, working on the emphasis of focusing into the emotional side of the investor and not the rational side first. So.
And something I would even say on that, since I mainly work on websites, is it's really important, even down to the structure of your site, to know whether someone makes more logical decisions or emotional decisions, because that is a thing that even myself, sometimes I can automatically assume, oh, this is going to be an emotionally buying crowd first, or an emotionally investing crowd first. But it does take a healthy amount of balance. So I like to run split tests with a lot of my websites to figure out, are they going to care more about the facts and the data first, or are they going to care more about your story first? The story of how you can help them, and then who you are as a person, and then get down to the facts and data, just as like a form of pre-due diligence, so to speak. But I feel like it's very important to know that, and then to be able to figure out how to lay out your website according to how they make decisions.
Can we jump on that real quick? So when you go to a website and you can immediately tell that, now obviously that's your skill set. That's what you do every day. But
Mhm.
like, what are the first few things when you go to a website that you see that immediately indicate it's this type of either like you said, logic or emotional appeal?
Right. So I love intros where it's like, hi, I'm so and so. First off, that's the wrong intro. Don't do that. The first thing that I should be seeing on your website is what you do and who you do it for. So, like, you're a real estate syndicator in such and such a market, or you're a real estate syndicator helping families do this. So, when you say things like, I'm helping this person do this, typically I'm expecting to get more of an emotion based presentation of what you do. If you say we are a syndication group with this many properties servicing this many people, I'm expecting to get more of a data laden presentation, which both are fine because, of course, depending on who you're targeting, they both care about those things. It's just a matter of presenting that information in a way, either way, that's going to be enticing and make them want to read more.
Now, is there a magical blend? You said there has to be a good balance, right? And we would agree with that, right? Because no matter at the end of the day, obviously we all want to scale. We all like the numbers. We all like the data, but at the same time, we're all people. We all have the emotional side. So you do have to have that healthy balance. But is there like a perfect formula or mix that you've seen when it comes to that kind of appeals to a more mass audience?
Not really. It really comes down to split testing. That's the fun and sucky part about marketing, is that everything is kind of a crapshoot. You can have all the data, all the facts, and but like different things will work on different audiences. So it's really down to split testing, making sure that your strategies are right.
Brian, have you heard
Tailored.
that term before? Split testing? I haven't heard
Yeah,
that.
you can do it with email marketing as well. Essentially, you have two
Mhm.
landing pages. So if somebody types in your URL, and it's going to automatically bounce them to one or the other. And you'll be able to see conversion rates based on data. So if your split test A, for example, is getting, let's say you're doing a newsletter subscription, you're trying to get people to subscribe. Let's say, out of 100%, 60% are coming from your split test model A, and only 40% are coming from B. Clearly your A works a little bit better. So maybe you should harness a little bit more energy towards your A because you're getting a higher conversion rate. So yes, I have heard that test before, and you can do it with emails, text messaging. There's all kinds of split testing until you figure out who your niche is and where you're getting the highest ROI. And then you can kind of shift your focus there because it works.
So to that point, then, when we're looking at the data, obviously we want to be putting out this content that's engaging people, that's getting connected with people, and you're doing the split testing. Like, how long do you let, I guess, content flow, or you produce certain amount of content in a particular way? Like when you're looking at the data and those conversions and those split testing, how often are you looking at those metrics to determine if you need to make an adjustment in your strategy or change or whatnot?
That's a great question. So a lot of times it can happen too fast. People will look at their websites, even if they have high traffic, they'll say after like a week or two, oh, well, this is working better, so I'm going to neglect it. And I would definitely say between 2 to 3 months is probably your sweet spot, because there are a lot of things to factor in as far as like, how is that page ranking? How is it ranking this week versus how is it ranking 3 months from now? Because if it's not ranking as well, that on Google, that could have a lot to do with why you got the results that you got. Are you running ads that direct to this page? How are those doing? That's going to have a lot to do with how that works out. So 3 months is really the sweet spot, and definitely include all of the different ways that you're getting traffic to that page when you're trying to figure out how effective something is.
Awesome. That's good to know. And looking at the data, what is a optimal like conversion rate? What is that number look like as far as lead generation, conversions, things like that? Where should people be targeting to let them know that this is a functioning funnel, so to speak?
Right. So that's really specific on what you do and your following. Because for like a health and wellness space, their conversion rate on like a $5,000 course, I think, is like 2.75 in email marketing. So it comes down to like, what is your industry? What are you doing within your industry? What is the price point? Who are you targeting with that price point? And like the time of year, things like that, and the platforms that you're using as well. So that's super specific.
Yeah. Brian, I know that's something that we're very, very big on is following that right in a conversion. And this is something that we preach to people in our industry, because when it comes to the world of syndication and you're raising millions of dollars of capital, you have to have a very extensive database that's always growing, right? Because ultimately, when you look at that from a lead conversion ratio, I mean, the number is very small when you're going out there raising capital, when you're tapping in. And so you have to be able to continue to scale that and drive that, because a small conversion rate on a large database can still equate to being a very substantial number. But quite the opposite is if you have a small conversion on a very small data set, then you're going to be left with being a very frustrated capital raiser, right, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, it's a numbers game, right? We say this all the time, and you got to have as big of a database as you can and know as many people as you can. You still want to try to find a way through your email copy, through your website, the messages you're putting out, to build a relationship with them without necessarily needing to pick up a phone or go to lunch or get on Zoom or whatever. There's other ways to build a relationship with them, which is what we're talking about here, right? Through the copy, understanding their psychology and what they're looking for. But you're right. At the end of the day, it's a numbers game. And even if you have 100,000 people in your database that are potentially interested in what you're offering, even a 1 or 2% conversion rate can still be a tremendously successful. You can have a very successful business with that type of conversion rate. So even though the percentages are small, you got to get that database. You got to get your funnels to function properly, which is what we're talking about is so important, because everybody knows your website is your modern business card, right? It's people's first impression about you. So everything from where you rank, how fast your website loads, what people first see, how the UI is built, is it user-friendly, is it easy to operate? All those things play a role in getting people into your funnel so that you can eventually convert them. Which is why this topic is so important. And I'm glad we're speaking about it today, because we talk a lot about buildings, but I know, Cody, you and I get a lot of questions about marketing, and we are not experts like Miss Divine here at all. But these are just the little pieces of the puzzle that are really, really important for people that are looking to scale their business, for them to know.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. Absolutely. Now, Divine, so we live in this digital age, right, where everything is behind a screen. You're online, whether it be through social media, your website, things like that. Where is there one particular vertical that we should be really putting more emphasis on or focusing in on when it comes to building out our brand or driving this marketing strategies? Like, is it a combination of all the above, or is it really just you should really be putting your efforts towards this right now? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I like to say that your website starts a conversation, and then all other avenues kind of set the tone for that conversation and help people converse back. So whenever you're looking into things like social media, I hate to see when people try and do everything and show up everywhere, because that is the fastest way to burn out. Even with a team, if you're investing in money for people to manage platforms where you're not getting a lot of traction, then you're not seeing a return on your investment, and it should just be trashed. So so things like Pinterest, depending on who you're marketing to, it can be very lucrative or it can be a money pit. LinkedIn is obviously a great one across the board, because that's the whole point of it, is to network and build relationships with people. Facebook is great for, the groups, whenever you find the really good ones, whenever you know where you're going. There can also be a lot of spammy groups. So of course that would be one where you should have a strategy. Instagram can also be great whenever it's keyword optimized and your account is set up to be very searchable, but it's not as heavy on the relationship side of things. So it's really down to testing out which platforms are working for you, where you're getting connections, where you're able to communicate with people. But yeah, I think in the real estate investing industry, between LinkedIn, email marketing, and Facebook, those are probably like your top three.
Well, that's good to know, Cody. That's where
Say,
we spend
Brian,
all of our money.
we got to figure it
Yeah.
out, whether we knew it
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, that's good to hear. And I think, success leaves clues, and you see a lot of the successful influences in our space that are following that exact path. And so, we definitely like adopting that. And I mean, it's important. And we tell people this all the time, right? If you don't have a digital presence in today's time, you're really non-existent. I mean, listen, we love shaking hands. We love meeting people face to face. And that's a great way to build true organic relationships. But at the end of the day, we are a world that's connected digitally, and if you're not tapping into that and not leveraging that to your advantage, then you're not going to grow and build those relationships that you need to go out and continue to grow your business. And so,
Yeah. And I really like what Divine said about your website starts a conversation, but your social media sort of nurtures the conversation, right? Because to piggyback on what you just said, Cody, you can meet somebody at a real estate conference or at a lunch or at a breakfast or at a networking event, right? But the real sort of value in meeting somebody is nurturing the relationship and then figuring out how to stay connected with them, right? So that they can either help you or you can help them. And social media and email marketing is a great way to stay in touch with them so that they feel like they begin to have, like Dan Hanford says, right? People have to know, like, and trust you. And the most important part of that triangle is the know. If they don't know you, if they don't know what you got going on in your offerings, then you just don't exist. Like you said, we're all over exposed on a daily basis to messaging from restaurants, retail, online shopping, real estate, everything podcast, right? Everything you can think of, we're just overwhelmed with the amount of messaging we see. So if you're not staying top of mind and finding a way to sort of, we call it like hacking the algorithm, right? How do you stay on top when people refresh their feed using those content words that you were talking about? Then you're going to be very easy to forget, and you don't want to be forgotten in this space at all.
that is true. That is true. Well, Divine, where do we find people like you? Most importantly, like where do we, I mean, because again, I do feel like, obviously your specialty is such a niche specialty, and it's in a very important specialty. And Brian and I, we for our business specifically, we specifically target people that we partner with to help us on the operational side of our business that have some type of real estate experience, that have some type of real estate knowledge, because it helps grow that so much easier, right? I mean,
Right.
When you're trying to work with a content writer, for example, or copywriter who doesn't have that real estate experience, you can tell in just the content and the quality of what that they're producing. So going back to the point is, where do we find people like you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I love to network and ask people who they know where they're getting their help from. LinkedIn is a great resource. For me, I feel like I've kind of cheated the code a little bit because the mentorship that I started in, it's so amazing that if I ever need another copywriter or a marketing strategist around this area, I just kind of reach out to another one of the writers there. So, I mean, Google, it can be a good resource, but I know that it's very easy to find somebody who kind of has all their stuff together as far as SEO goes, but they're still not quite legit. So I feel like it's really important to go through your network and see who they're using. And then make sure that you do your due diligence on them just as much as you're going to do it on another investor to make sure you're going to get your return on investment.
Sure. Well, Brian, our goal for Divine should be to get her like over 100 new business cards by the time this one releases, right?
Oh yeah, I think you're going to get a lot of follow up after this podcast. I mean, I'm not joking. We get asked all the time, like a lot of people, they love real estate and they want to start building a brand, but they have no idea where to start. And I always tell people something's better than nothing, so start somewhere. But if you can afford and within your budget to outsource and bring somebody who's an expert in like yourself, I highly recommend it, because the amount of hours that you've put in, the knowledge and experience you have, it's invaluable, and it can make all of our businesses better. It can help throw some gasoline on the fire and help us accelerate even faster. So I agree, Cody. I think she's going to be getting a lot of follow-up from LinkedIn, Facebook, and then obviously, just calls and emails after the fact. So, because people definitely need your service.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Divine, so what's the long-term goal for you then? I mean, where's your business going? Where do you hope to see transpire over the next few years for you?
Yeah, so I would love to see my business help so many investors figure out how to find their voice and then how to market to exactly who they want to target. And then figure out like even how to roll with the punches whenever that target shifts. That's something I'm so passionate about is just creating, is helping people um, get the brand that's inside of them out and connect well. So that's my whole goal.
That's good. And that's another great point too. This is such a fast moving world now. Like in the
Mhm.
digital age, I feel like every month there's a new platform or there's a new, something of interest. Like it's just constantly evolving way too fast for, I know, me to keep up with. And so, yeah, I think it's important to stay in tune with what's going on and making those shifts, at the right timing and such. And Brian, you said it eloquently, man. Glad to have people like you, Divine, who are out there doing that day to day for us. And so we don't have to worry about that. So
Yeah. I'm happy to be here.
good deal. Good deal. Well, Brian, what questions did we leave out or anything that we didn't discuss?
No, I think we talked about a lot of really valuable things for anybody who's interested in building their brand, getting
Mhm.
their name out there, getting their voice out there, whether it's a personal brand or it's an actual brand, and they're looking to start like a real estate firm or a real estate company, investing company, whatever it may be. I think we covered a lot of really important things. Having a really high quality website, right? Not just having a website, but making sure that it's structured and put together right to either pull on the right emotional strings to sort of get that conversion or be analytical if you're targeting that type of market. And then we talked about your voice. We talked about not only on your website, your voice, but your social media content, how it sort of supplements and fits into what the messaging is on your website. Talked a little bit about email marketing and A/B testing and all that good stuff. And I think just overall how important the psychology is for anybody who's in real estate, whether you're an active buyer and you're buying properties yourself like we are, or you're an investor and you're partnering with people like us to place capital passively in deals. Understanding all that is really, really important if you're going to be successful in this business. So definitely an awesome show and appreciate Divine coming on.
Yeah, I know. I took a bunch of notes here, and I got a bunch of nuggets here, and even as much stuff as we're doing, Brian. I mean, it's just like you always learn something new every day. So,
Absolutely.
Divine, really appreciate that. And I want to hit one more point home. And for those who are listening and who are interested in this, you have to make this investment in your business. There is an investment that comes along with it, but you have to make it your business. And we like to tell people, right, Brian, is if you think about that investment and putting up that upfront cost and putting in the work that it takes, if you get one $50,000 investor to partner with you, $100,000 investor to partner with you, or maybe you find a partner that is a complementary skill set and a new partner in your business, and you go do a deal together. That you can't put a number on that return. It's an infinite return. So I encourage people to really take a look at this, especially if you're not an expert, which most of us are not. Bring on the right people to help you build your business, make the investment in your business to help you grow, and it will work magic for you for sure.
Well said, Katie. Well said.
Well, Divine, thank you so much for being here. This has been a great conversation. Tell our audience and listeners how they can learn more about you and get connected with you.
Of course. So you can connect with me. I love to be on Instagram. I talk to you guys all the time. I also have a Facebook page that's just like linked to my Instagram, but I check it regularly. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn at Divine Bunch, and my website is divinewritingagency.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Divine. We look forward to staying connected.
Thank you. Same here.
Thanks, Divine.